Together we'll live in the airgun dream.
Hi guys, and welcome to the third AirAbility podcast. And as ever, I'm joined by Crackshot Tom. Hi Tom.
Hey, you're right. How you doing?
Grand, thanks Tom. And Dave O'Hara, he's the president of the Field Target Federation and the Lord of all tin chickens. Hi Dave.
How are you guys?
Great,
Yeah,
great. I think this is the first time we've had a president on. I feel like an overwhelming urge to salute. Absolutely, you know what I mean? It's
You can salute if you want. I might salute back.
brilliant, right, okay. So I always ask Tom at this point, what's he been doing this week? What have you been doing since the last podcast? Anything interesting?
I've been away in Wales on holiday. No shooting, apart from, well, we had our competition. Much better, we'll dive into that in a bit. But yeah, mostly this week, just time away with the wife. We're celebrating our first year anniversary.
Congratulations. Very good, Tom. Well done.
Thank you.
Brilliant. I had money on it wasn't going this far. You know what I mean? But brilliant. Well done.
A few people have been putting wagers on that online, to be fair. But listen, Tom, you can't be that bad. I know you're a bench race shooter, you could be a field target shooter, but you can't be that bad a guy.
Kirsty's a saint. That's all I can say. So yeah. I've been the same. After the competition, I've done very little. I've been in the shed. I've been printing about the 6th iteration of the 3D printed bench rest stock we're working on, Tom. So that should be up and running this week. We building our own stocks using 3D printers and aluminium cores at the moment, trying to get a cheap alternative for people to get into the sport. I'll put some pictures up on the podcast.
Are you guys limited to weight? The same as like centre-fire bench rest would be?
So that's why we're doing that's why we're doing the printed stock, so we can get a really light stock and get a big scope on.
Okay. So
we limit it to 10.5 pound.
Yeah, well that's the same as like centre-fire bench rest.
Yeah.
So Tom, what did you do? Is that like not a material you guys are into?
What material was that?
Carbon.
Yes, but that's really light, isn't it? You're trying to get this mix. But the idea of the 3D printed stock project was to make cheap stocks accessible for people at home. And basically, we've managed to make them out of 4 parts. An aluminium core and 3 3D printed parts. And you're pretty much away.
Okay.
So bench rest stock, so it's the same price for one of them as an FT stock. It's still a custom stock. So one of the things we were trying to do was just make it as minimal cost as possible, because unfortunately 95% of the stocks that come with rifles aren't compliant with the rules because of dimensions on the stocks and stuff. So you straight away, you got to take a stock off, buy a custom stock, and there's another 500-600 quid procedure you really shouldn't want to do, don't want to do to begin with. So we're trying to come up with this free design as such, and I think what we in is very minimal cost, Matt. I think we're under 100 quid for them.
Oh no, it's a lot less than that. Probably less than 50 if you've got the gear.
Crackshot, the Southwest's premier airgun shop and ranges. Proud sponsor of the AirAbility podcast.
Yeah. So, Tom, are you shoot FSC heavy bench, right?
My FAC one's 50 meter unlimited, so we haven't got any weight restrictions, stock restrictions, stuff like that. The only real set rule is the front and rear rest has still got to be separate. It can't be like a rail gun and such.
Yeah, yes, I understand. Yeah, I understand. So, where do you guys derive your rules from bench rest from? Is it from like centre-fire bench rest? Do you follow those rules, or is there like an air bench
the World
rest?
Federation. The World Federation, and they cover 2.2 rimfire and air rifles.
Okay.
Yes, they're very similar rules.
Okay.
Very similar rules.
Yeah.
But so basically there's 3 categories: under 10.5 pound in weight, under 15 pound in weight,
But
and then
they shot
Yeah, they're
So
shot at sub 12 in the UK, but in Europe and the rest of the world, the heavy one is shot under 20 foot-pound. And then we have what's new to the UK, the Unlimited, where, as the title suggests, it's like those bonkers rally cars in the 80s. There's virtually no rules. You can do
Yeah.
what you want.
Yeah.
So
So
that's where we're at.
but you can run slugs in that, Tom, yeah?
yeah, I run a variance of slugs, but like I said, we're trying to find out what's the best to use. But I've used from 42 down to I think it was a 22 grain. It was the lightest I've tried, and it's
Okay.
around 30, 33. Seems to be the best kind of area to use.
At what power and velocity?
I don't know what the equates to in foot-pound, but it's around 900 to 920 feet per second. It's not 22 caliber, 30 grain, 33 grain. Sorry, so it's not like it's not running it anywhere near flat out because I've been up to 100 foot-pounds with it, but it seems to be the most consistent and happiest the rifle's been so far.
Yeah, so how far down the rabbit hole do you guys go for like experimenting with like tuners, cones, muzzle brakes, that type of stuff?
You're talking
Right
to the
down
two
the
worst
rabbit
ones
hole.
for it.
So we constantly on the phone to each other, starting from about 7 a.m. in the morning, talking about what we invented in our sleep last night.
Yeah.
I've got the fit in the bench rest world. I've got the famous shed, haven't I? Where basically all sorts of bonkers, you know, jiggery pokery goes on in there. And when you're talking about tuners and things like that, I'm possibly one of the only ones who runs with a silencer. And my silencer is a converted modular silencer. And I've got air strippers, I've got wooden for sound, and I've got a weight system in there, which is a bit like a barrel tuner. You put different amounts of weight in to tune the barrel. So that's special to me. So that's something I run on my rifles.
And me now after last weekend.
Falcon Optical Systems. They're built to compete and proud sponsors of the AirAbility podcast.
Right, come on, tell us about that. Us field target guys, obviously, our sport's completely different than you guys are, right? But and not everyone that competes in my game would be as anal as what I would be about it. You know, I would kind of chase down those rabbit holes over that, and some guys are like, look, if it knocks stuff down at 50 meters and it's in a 40 mil kill, you don't have to chase after that. But
so before
mindset.
When you're on about anal, the competitions, we weigh, size, tickle, counsel every pellet before we use it. You know what I mean?
We've got some comparators using microscopes now to even check the pellets.
Yeah. So it's
okay. So one kind of weird one that I've been sort of looking at this last while is like obviously a pellet. A slug's slightly different. You're sort of in an intermediary between a pellet and a bullet. So you can pick up a slug and it's slightly bigger. But with a pellet, there's so little you can do to it. Obviously, you can check your head size and then you can size them as you guys touched on there, like which I've sort of started on this last 4 months or so. But
I disagree with you there. There's so much you can do with a pellet.
Okay.
You know, you can size the whole pellet. You can size the whole pellet. A die where it's smaller than the head and the skirt, yeah? Or you can just trim a little bit off the skirt and leave the head untouched. You can lubricate them individually on site, or you can do it beforehand. That all makes a difference. You can
Sorry, Matt, saying the lube thing, explain what you do with your pad. That's like one of your big things, isn't it, that you enjoy?
So the thing I do is it wouldn't work for field target out in the muck and the rain, but I have a little aluminium disc with a tiny bit of foam on and a microscopic amount of lubrication, and every pellet gets rolled on it before it goes in the barrel.
And I bet you know how many drops of lube are on that pad as well.
Yes, I do.
So how would that work for different environmental conditions and like consistency from shot to shot?
So consistency, I know exactly how much lube's on my pad. I know how much I roll it about. I do it because on site immediately before it goes about, because I feel that it's fresh. It hasn't rubbed off in the tin with your fingers, etc. Less is more. Obviously, with regards to consistency, the pellets we run can be slightly tight. I feel they go in the barrel better. I've done thousands and thousands and thousands of tests of lubed against non-lubed, and they just come out microscopically more consistent. And we are measuring our groups. Although we don't shoot in groups, we would class a 1/4 of a millimetre smaller group as an absolute victory, wouldn't we, Tom?
Yeah.
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 So-
If we're on like an 8 or 9 mil group, we're pissed. We want smaller than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At what range, Tom?
25 metres.
Yeah.
In the sub 12, so in sub 12 we want we want basically under 10 mil to keep clipping that 10 ring. But if you want nexus, you have to be shooting under about 5 mil groups.
Right. Okay. Educate us, field target shooters, and people that are going to be watching this here that don't know what a. So your axe is your V-bull, or your like.
Yeah. So it's a 2 millimeter bull, and if you totally punch out the 2 millimeter bull, and there's no bull left, that's an X.
Okay. So what's your 10?
But clipping the 2 millimeter bull. There you go.
That's
Okay.
That is a 10, because, hang on, let me get closer. Is that an X or a 10, Matt? I can't see the screen, though.
It hasn't taken the whole bull out, so that's a 10. It's just clipped the bull.
Okay,
so if there was none of that bull left, it would be an X.
Okay.
So, for instance, I think...
that's an X.
I can't really see the screen, but yeah, that's an X there.
There's an X.
Number 16, and then... see, good example. There's a bit of the ball left.
Yes, I see it now. Yeah, that's better than the first one you showed. Yeah, right. I'm with you now.
That's a 10.
So that wee tiny black circle in the center is your X, and the white ring around it is your 9. Sorry, your 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, 9.
Okay.
Hang on.
So
Let's go.
At your competition, would I be right in saying that you guys shoot 25 shots at 25 meters?
Yeah. 25 scored shots. We can have as many sighting shots as we want.
So if you see the blue ones, it's one shot for each box.
Yeah.
And the red ones, we can shoot as many times as we want in our 20 minutes.
Right. So you have 20 minutes for a relay, is that correct?
Yeah.
Right. So once you start your relay and you start going to blue, can you then dip out and go back into the red again to check a sighting shot because the condition has changed? Okay.
Yeah, in and out. Yeah.
Right. The reason I'm picking your brains on this, guys, is because you guys have like one shot for precision accuracy. And that's the same also for field target. Obviously, we can't dip in and out, right? So you guys are shooting at measured distance targets. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's only one distance, 25 meters, or for heavy gun, Tom, is 50 meters.
Yep.
Okay. So obviously for us in field target, we're different in the fact that we have to find out what distance the target is. So if like I shot F-class before in centerfire bench raced, and I've shot different ranges all around the world, like at 8, 9 and 1,000 yards, sometimes out to 1,200 yards in Bisley and places like that. And you would get slight variation. Now, I when I was shooting centerfire disciplines, I would never try and focus my scope sharp. I would always knock it out of focus so I could watch mirage, right? And when I was doing those disciplines, a lot of the adjutants for the teams would be asking me, like, how are you watching these flags and stuff? And the honest answer is I came from field target, went to centerfire and went back to field target. And I being completely honest, I like big 36-inch flags, I didn't know how to read them because you didn't do that in field target, and I had no clue how to vector them or whatever. So I was using feel on my face at the muzzle, and then what I could see from me to the target. Obviously, the human eyeball can't pick up small details between 50 meters, 0 and 50 meters, the way it can to 1,000 meters. So I would knock my scope out of focus and then try to use the mirage and how that changed. So to sort of come back to what I was saying is, you guys have like one shot, and that's similar to what we have. You know, when you go blue, you can't take a second shot. So when we go on target, which is every shot we have, we don't get a second shot. It's either a hit or a miss. Hunter field target slightly different. If they hit plate, that's 1 point. If they knock the target down, that's 2 points. We either have a point or a miss. So we've nothing in between. So repeatability and accuracy, and sort of to go back a few minutes, Tom, was why I was asking you. So what caliber are you using? What velocity are you using? Harmonics is a big thing that I would find in field target, and it's bound to be for you guys. So it's like getting that one shot. Sometimes you can get groups at 50 meters, although we would shoot predominantly in the United Kingdom in yards, although the World Field Target Federation shoot meters. You one shot predictability is more important than group and accuracy, because you don't get group and accuracy. Although, to be completely honest, I've been a victim of my own downfall in that one, where I would chase after grouping, you know, and a pellet would be here or there or there. It's that shot predictability.
I think the thing is, we talk about groups to make it accessible, the conversation, to people who don't shoot bench rest. But we don't actually shoot groups. Groups hide. But even in practice, groups hide mistakes, because, you know, you bend the edges of the paper over. A group can be 2 or 3 mil bigger than you actually see the hole, because it keeps flicking the paper. So we shoot single shots at single bulls. That's how we attribute our accuracy. And when we are, what we're looking for is basically the highest X count we can get in controlled conditions, sheltered outdoor or indoor conditions, and that shows us the rifle's right. And then when we get the rifle right, with all the barrel tuning, the pellet prep, the speed, and all that jiggery pokery that you're on about, we know it's down to reading the wind correctly when we get to a range. And what we do is we have up to 4 or 5 wind flags of various homemade designs. And the thing I was going to talk to you about, because, by the way, we've just done a podcast world record here. We were 15 seconds before we went off script with Tommy Bennett. We were at least 3 seconds before we went off script.
I don't think we ever got on it, did we?
No, we didn't. That's the point. I will ask you about your special tournament later. Don't let me forget. But I think one of the things is we can learn from each other, because I think both disciplines have things we can learn. So for me, I've shot a few guys who think their FT rifles are the mutt's nuts, But when you get them on a bench, they're not as great as they're good, but they're not as great as they think they are. When you're on the Grand Inquisitor of a bench on a set distance and you shoot the 2mm dots, it really highlights where you're lacking. And I also think the HFT guys, or FT guys, or whatever when you were talking about air pressure and wind on your face, and reading it without actually seeing flags. Well, I do that. I won't wear earplugs on the range, because that takes away that feeling for me. And I think you guys could really teach us a thing or two about reading the conditions without all that jiggery pokery we have down the range. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, like, although our sports are very different, they're the same, really, because you're looking for that one shot predictability that's going to go there. Do you know what I mean? So, and again, I'm making some assumptions here, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, right? When I shot centerfire bench rest, I used like a Seb Neo rest and a rear bag.
Yeah, that's what we use.
And the gun would track, right? So I'm assuming when you guys say you're shooting bench rest, you're going to be using rests like that.
Yep, we do.
Okay.
Nearly exactly.
So I have sort of crossed between the left field and the right field of setting my field target gun up, shooting it on a bench in a rest. I haven't used a rear bag, to be honest, right? Because it's easier to shoulder it. But the difference between using a rested gun on a bench or sitting on the ground in your field target position on a cushion and using that familiarity that you use, it's harder to hold that grip rather than on a bench. But I've set my gun up. Now, my drops are predominantly the same. Very nice. What's that,
Rest
Tom?
like that. That's one of my own rests. That is my design that I make.
Wow. Cool. Okay.
From Elemental
Very
Target Solutions, company I started up last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like the rest we go on. Normally, it has like a joystick that comes out here with like a handle that operates on the table. Yeah,
Sorry, Tom.
kind of.
Shameless plug. What's it called again?
It's ETF1 by Elemental Target Solutions.
ETF1 by Elemental Target Solutions.
Yeah, he's half in bits at the moment, that one, but
okay.
So, the man has no shame. It comes out every episode. The man has no shame.
Tom, do you make these?
Yes, yeah. I spent like 18 months designing a rest. That was literally the 10th or 11th version of trying to get it right.
I'll have the 13th.
I'm sure I've got to it. Yeah, I got to it ready to go pretty much.
I'll have number 13.
I'll put you in. They're all black now. They look a bit more stealthy.
Cool, even better.
If you lose, you can use them. You can use them to sink a body if you lose because they're that heavy. You know what I mean? You get rid of your competitors as well.
I proper torture tested that. So that was the first prototype. That one I just showed you. We threw that about on concrete and all sorts, trying to make sure it wouldn't break or anything.
Yeah,
I'll be bugging if I can find a dent on it.
Yeah. Well, we'll hook up offline. But seriously, I want number 13 on the run. I'll have that one. But to go back to what I was saying, there's shooting off a bench or for field target. Now this is specific, right? So shooting off a bench or shooting from a rested position or shooting from the open position, it's called in field target. It's not called a sitting position. So you can shoot it prone if you wish. You can shoot it standing, sitting, or kneeling. It's the open position. Shooting your gun like that will give you different harmonic vibrations between shooting off a bench, because your gun is sometimes, if like say this is probably like Neanderthal style for you guys, right? But say you use one of those Bisley rests with a sort of wind up and down thing at the front. You're on a hard-to-hard contact there, like not like you've designed there, Tom, or a proper bench rest where you have like bag riders and stuff like that. The harmonics are different, and depending on where you hold your forend, to the side of your knee, off your knee, down your thigh, it's all different. Now, never mind the fact that it's different harmonically and repeatability. You can also have a parallax there, which that's one I've never thought of before until right this second. So if you guys have set your gun up and you're tracking, you're in a rear bag with your bunny ears up, right, and you're tracking your joystick and your rear bag's here, there has to be a slight element of parallax error. Or correct me if I'm talking absolute nonsense, but in my mind, there has to be a minute amount of parallax error if you're moving your joystick and your stock's held at the back and your gun's moving at the front. But we track with the
gun. We track with the gun. We're altering our angle with the gun. We're absolutely fanatical about focus, getting that parallax right. Whereas you have the big wheel, I've got a lever on about year long to get there. So I'm doing like a millimetre or two. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
getting it absolutely right. It's essential. It's really essential for us because of those 2 millimetre balls. You do the old head bobble, don't you, to check your parallax? Yeah. Have you
Give me
done
that
that with
again,
your
man.
parallax? Do you do the head wobble to check your parallax? So you focus of your parallax. If you move your head and your focus is wrong, the crosshairs will move on the target.
No,
Right.
because go ahead.
So we do. So what we do is it's Gary Chillenworth was on about it years ago. So we focus on the target, and if you got your rifle set up, it's rock solid. There's nothing moving, and you not touching your rifle, and you move your eye like this, and everybody's going to laugh at me nodding at the screen, right?
No, it's okay.
If your parallax isn't perfect, the crosshair will move microscopically, and on a 2mm bull at 25 meters, it can move out of the bull.
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
even get
massively,
off the ball.
yeah.
So we are
It's
absolutely
margins of error,
fanatical
really,
about
what we're talking about here, isn't it?
Yeah. So we're fanatical about parallax. And I'll tell you a tale. Tom and I were at the tournament, and
Oh, I knew you were going to go into this.
we were the only guys who spotted it. We walked on and we went 25 yards, not 25 meters. He gave me the eye, yeah. And 99% of the shooters didn't adjust the parallax.
Yeah.
And those 2 meters are critical. With
That is literally the first thing we do on a practice day. We'll get the range, everything's set up, check parallax. And so, I don't know anybody else who does it apart from me and Matt.
So when you say you check your parallax, right? You go to a range in like wherever, right? And that your target boards are out there, right? And let's assume it's 25 meters. Like when you guys set up on your bench, how do you know that's 25 meters for your gun? What do you do to tell you that's 25 meters or 25 yards? How do you know?
You can spot that a mile off. You can spot yards and meters a mile off because it's 10% less, isn't it? Or 10%
yes,
more.
but how, are you using the scope? Are you using a laser rangefinder? How do you know?
Eyes as well, because we fixed distance. We just
eyes.
notice it different straight away.
Yeah.
But with me and Matt, I got Matt onto this as well. We use a tape measure to put our wind flags out. So this is going back to the consistency of setting up kit. On our tape measures, we have a line or a stick or whatever where our flags go for the exact same placement every single time. Exact same flag goes in the exact same place. All of the flags are numbered. All about even the stands to the tops of the flags are all numbered, so the correct balance, and some might be different slightly. When we put our tape measure out, it's easy. Just while it's out, have a look. What is the distance?
But we would know instantly by putting the gun down. Yeah, but without the tape measure, if we've been on a 25-meter range previously and we put the gun down and it's out of, you can tell immediately if it's not 25 meters. And we always read parallax because even if a range says it's 25 meters, they might have moved the benches back 40 centimeters off forward.
Yeah.
You know, we don't trust anybody.
Do you know what? Do you guys follow other shooters' social media accounts?
Yeah. We all do. We're all quite close.
Have you heard of the centerfire bench race guy, Speedy Gonzalez?
Can't say I have, no.
It's social media is not great, right? Because he's an elderly. Well, he's older than me, which makes him elderly, right? He's like in his late 60s now, right? But he would be like a guru of centerfire bench race, right? And here's a great one for you guys or anybody that's a sort of nerd for accuracy like myself. It's called the Houston Warehouse Project, where these guys tested centerfire rifles to the nth degree inside, right? But I would, and again, his social media isn't great because he's not a guy from that era, right? But he said something in one of his podcasts once, and it caught my ears, and I went, that's a rule I'm going to live by now, right? Where you guys just go, well, if we go on the line, we set our guns down and the parallax isn't crisp, we know that's not 25 meters, right? So he had a statement, and this equates to bolt drop, fire control operation, mounts, scope, rail, bedding, everything, right? Everything's broken until it is proved not to be. And that's his mantra. Do you know? And
Absolutely.
you guys have just touched on that only from a different loop, but it's no coincidence that you're both bench race shooters and you both have that mindset. Do you know?
We're batshit
Because
crazy.
you're chasing after that. Yeah.
Yeah, we batshit crazy. We obsessive. People laugh at us. You know, to be honest,
Yeah.
you know, when I'm talking about how I prepare me pellets, how I tune me guns, the guy who tunes my rifles, I don't know if you know Simon Howarth. He's been around a while at
Yeah,
doing
yes,
more
I do. Yeah, I don't know that name yet.
Tench. He's
Yeah.
his business name's Tench. Now he is, in my eyes, is a magician. What he does to my guns, but he thinks I'm a bit tapped in the head when I talk about the levels I go to. You know what I mean? And but what we find is there is a clear difference. On averages, anybody can win an event. Don't get me wrong, right? But on average, the people who are more detail focused win more events over time when it comes to bench rest.
There's a guy that shoots field target with me here in Northern Ireland called Dermot Ross, and he's been shooting field target for like 20 plus years. And he said to me a long time ago, me and him are like pretty close friends, right? And he said to me, "You don't win by accident." You know, if we're talking about somebody winning the world championships or somebody doing this or somebody doing that, it's like you don't just you can get lucky once, right? But you don't muddle your way into winning.
No.
You know, so for the detail guys to be the guys that are sort of the tip of the spear, that's not an accident. Like it for me, precision shooting is the link between heavy bench rest, light format, field target. It's precision shooting and accuracy for one round. Do you know, like if you shoot at something often enough, you'll hit it. But that's not accuracy and that's not precision. It's one time, one go, boom, you've got it.
And I think people don't understand that. I don't think people understand that. You know, you're there on the range, right?
Yeah.
So basically, if we hit a 5, that could be a season over, right? A season, not
or a gun breakage for one event.
Yeah,
that's it.
So I said it wrong on the last podcast, but I'll correct me numbers. Out of 7,500 shots, points, 7,500 points for the whole season, last season, right? I finished number 1. Tom finished number 2, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And we were only 9 points different out of 7,500 points.
That's 2 shots.
That's the difference. And basically, you know, like 9 points. You know, Tom's still my bitch. You know what I mean? But
the coffee bitch.
I'm not catching him this year. Not this year.
But what I'm trying to say is, it was right down to the last moment. And if I had a shot 2 or 3 sevens that season, you know, it's like basketball, free throws. You just can't miss them. You lose matches.
Well, do you know, like, I'm sure you guys and quite a lot of people that'll view this have heard the saying, right? Birds of a feather flock together. It's no coincidence that you guys are like number 1 and number 2 in the UK bench race scene, and you are hanging out together and you are chasing after the same ideas and you have the same sort of mindset like that. That's not coincidence. You know, to look for that sort of nth degree of accuracy and precision, that's a mindset, and it's like your gun won't magically make itself work. The same in field target, right? You won't just luckily get the right gun and the right scope and the right pellet barrel combination, and it doesn't happen by accident. It's the guys that have this, that chase after that produce time after time.
I fluked out last year with a Peter rifle, and unfortunately went wrong over winter and want the same again.
Yeah. Right. Well, come on. Here's one we haven't touched on now. But you know, I know that you guys are sort of podcasting me here, like, but I'm going to reverse engineer this. You tell me what guns you use, and you know why you chose that type of gun? And
Matt, I'll
Well,
let
for
you go
me,
first.
I've had this. So over the 5 years, I've been getting 4 or 5 years, been getting good results. Same gun. I believe in keeping the same gun if you can, because beware the man who has one gun because he knows it.
fear the man. Yep.
Yeah. So I've got one 9015. Well, I've got two, but I've got one match one. Anschuts, that's been touched by Simon Howarth. Anschuts, beautiful people, sent me some of their special barrels last year. Can't complain about that. And put the cream on it. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but I have won 90% of my medals with a standard stock barrel that came with it.
Right, come on, you're not going to get off of that easy talking like that to me. What do you mean now, beautiful people give me the special barrels? Elaborate on that a bit.
No, Anshut said, would you like one of our very special barrels? And I went, very special, yes. So they sent me two
Let me
barrels
think about
last
that
year.
for a second, yeah. So when you say like Anshut, are you talking like direct from the factory in Germany here?
Yeah, factory barrels, yeah.
Okay,
Checked in
all right, so you guys
R&D
have like direct
department.
factory support.
Yeah, little bit, yeah, every now and then, and
Good.
I've got like a contact in the R&D bit, you know what I mean, and he's canny and he looks after me a bit, and
Fantastic.
it's really good. And these barrels came, and what people don't understand, these barrels don't make a winner. You still got to point them in the right direction.
100%. They
But
don't do it themselves, yeah.
yeah, but there's a couple of X's in there that isn't in the other barrels that I had. Do you know what I mean? And I'll hand over to Tom in a minute, but like the camaraderie in this shooting, like Tom's my mate. Tom's helped me out so much, and vice versa. And he was having trouble last weekend, so I made sure he's now got a top barrel, didn't I, Tom? So
And
Tom's
what happened after you let me switch barrel?
Yeah, he beat me with a frigging thing, didn't he?
Well, the best thing you can do in that situation, in my opinion, Matt, is take the barrel back off him and hit him in the head with.
Yeah, no, I won't. I love him to bits, and he can,
Yeah.
Good luck with it. That's what I say.
Yeah. Good on you.
Yeah. So with mine, the same rifle. I got Anschutz 9015 as well, but I've only had it 3-4 weeks. Had an XTI 50 before that. Worked brilliantly last year. Went wrong over winter. Had problems with the stabilizer. The reg went as well. Got it sorted out. It was 95% the same rifle, but when we're chasing like we say, the nth degree of accuracy, it just isn't enough. But yeah, and then Matt made the suggestion to me, why don't you look down a 9015? I had one before, but as Matt knows, that was a dog of a rifle. It was I've never seen such a badly kept rifle, but it was a box of surprise every time you open the damn thing. But the one I've got now I think it's tuned by the same chap who does yours, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, Simon.
Yeah, Simon one.
Yeah.
So the over chrono shot to shot consistency was extremely good, like over a card of 3.2 feet per second, which is mind-blowingly good for because anything over 10 you won't see on under 10 you won't see on a card. But the only problem was the barrel was crap on it. It was just spraying anything and everything everywhere. Like, it was completely unusable, unmanageable. You had no idea what it was going to do in the wind. So I'll go on to the tournament we had last week. So last week I had my first card in the light rifle class. I shot a 228, which is the lowest score I've ever shot in a competition. Absolutely dreadful. Really, really bad. So Matt said, right, let's do the extreme thing. Let's just swap the barrel. Let's just do it. Let's do it there and then. We'll see what's what, and we'll try an old batch of FT pellets for it. Barracuda FTs. I wrote off Saturday. Spent the second and third card just learning the hold offs, like wind patterns and stuff. Which was the right thing to do. I knew the day was a write off, so I might as well maximise the time I got to try and learn some more. And then Sunday, put that into practice and came fourth out of 35.
Well done. Yeah. Sometimes you have to sort of go, okay, something's amiss here. I'll sacrifice this competition to learn something for down the road. And it's like looking at the big picture, like, isn't it?
Yeah, I did have a bit of a jump start though, because Matt said to me, right, run them at this speed, don't do this, don't do that, leave it alone. I was like, all right. So, sure enough, it was bloody spot on, but...
Yeah. So to sort of go from barrel to pellet there, are you guys using H&N pellets, or what are you running?
H&N, Paracuda FT and the like stuff.
Which is 8.4, is that correct?
9.5s.
9.5s, okay, sorry, the H&N 8s are 8.4. So why did you choose that pellet?
Because for me, nearly every tin's the same. The consistency of what comes out.
Thing, isn't it?
I'll be honest with you. I don't want to malign any other brand or anything like that, but what I find is I've got about 5 years of tins in my collection, and yes, I do put little labels on them to tell what year and what batch and things like that, because I am obsessive. But one of the things I did last year was I took pellets from each batch over 5 years, mixed them all up in a tin, and I shot them at a demonstration target on my home range, which is very sheltered. And I got a score that was, I got a full 250 with a very high X count to show that there wasn't that much different. There was no flyers. There was no, and don't get me wrong, people have different experiences. You have to have a gun that suits a pellet, flat out. You can't say to somebody, shoot that pellet. Anybody who says shoot that pellet is batshit bonkers, because I've got guns that would spray an FT like a shotgun, and then my hand shots, it's absolutely exquisite. You choose the pellet, the barrel, the speed. Even if you're running 20, 30 feet per second difference, it can really change what that pellet's doing at 25 meters. So it's a journey. And when people say to me about pellet testing, I was on the phone one night to somebody, and they went, "It's all right, Matt, I've tested the pellets. I put 10 of these down and 10 of them down," right? And my first thought was that 10,000? Because when I've tested these pellets, I actually, I can tell the different. You can't tell on the card, but some of the batches I can tell how they go in the end of the barrel, which batch they came from. That's how.
I think as well, when we're shooting outside as well, I'm sure Matt's agree with this. The FT pellets that we use seem to be not the easiest, but the most consistent with hold off in heavier winds. Which, okay, we lose out to the lighter pellets probably on a lighter day because they got that bit extra speed to cut out turbulent winds, which we do get. It happens that we get caught up on light wind days. And then, the heavier wind day comes and we're fine. We can manage with it. But it is what it is. I mean, if the barrel doesn't like the pellets, it's not going to shoot well.
That's exactly it. Like, but I suppose to sort of touch on what H&N are doing there, it's a massive advantage for them not to be chasing after die numbers, because for us in Field Target, we'll find a specific die number that we think's fantastic. And I sort of had an opinion, which is through education and time. Like, my opinion would have been good pellets are good pellets. Now, I've had like fantastic pellets that have been running in certain barrels, and I've tried them in other barrels, and they've been close to the worst I've ever used. So over this kind of last 8 or 10 months, I've been going, good pellets are only good pellets when they're matched to the right barrel. So a good barrel's a good barrel, and good pellets are good pellets. But when you put them both together, they just mightn't like each other. It doesn't mean that either of them is bad.
They can just mix like oil and water, can't they? Like oil and water.
But if I had spoke to you like 12 months ago, I would have went, no, that's not the case in Field Target. This is what it is. But experience now has taught me different. And like, I'm not a new shooter, and I'm not kind of a sort of novice. I've been doing this for a while, and I have like a lot of experience with internal ballistics through centerfire stuff, which is irrelevant to what we're doing. But I would have this like more experience with external ballistics. But I'm never one to sort of go, listen, I know what I'm saying, and that's it. Boom. It's like carved in stone, like a 10 Commandments, and that's the way it is. I'm learning and changing opinions all the time because current thinking tells you this, but current thinking 10 years ago and what we're doing now is different. So as things change, like pellet lead through recycled lead and barrels to an extent as well are not what they were years ago. So it's finding that right mixture of lead and barrel and making that connection. It's like, why do you fall in love with someone? Oh, I just did. It's like, why is this palette working great in this part? It just does. Forget about the why. And again, like I would do quite a lot of downrange velocity testing at sort of 50 meters and that. So I would track like claimed BCs don't mean anything to me. So I would track from the muzzle to 50 meters and go, okay, so I can watch reverse engineer how much that decelerates, and then a pellet will tell me how efficient it is, which it tells you how effective the ballistic coefficient is, which will give you an idea of how it'll drift and wind at 50 meters. But then you're into accuracy, wind stability, do you know what I mean? Winds from the left, winds from the right, headwinds, tailwinds, it all can change. So finding that one holy grail of everything, it's not easy to do. And then when you find that batch, it's like, okay, how many of these can I get?
Yeah. So, but also, do you not think, right, we've got all this obsession, we've got all this knowledge, we've got all this testing, yeah? But sometimes you just got to go, yeah, it's magic, and accept it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some things you can't explain. It just works.
I had this last weekend when I was using that barrel you let me have, Matt. Now, every time I got caught by the wind was because I was holding off too much. The barrel takes half to a third of the wind my last barrel took. It was mind-boggling.
Yeah.
If you beat me again, I take it back.
You have to recalibrate your brain to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But H&N said something to me. I talked to the marketing guy a lot over at H&N, and message him most weeks, and we chat. And he said to me, and he was honest about it, and I respect it. He said, "You wouldn't be here with me if you weren't getting the results you needed." And I think bench press shooters are very cold. We are, because it's all about points. Yes, it's nice. You can see we both wear Falcon hats. Falcon support us as well. They also, like with Crackshot, they actually sponsoring this podcast, and they give us the cost to run it, which is fantastic. But if we weren't hitting with whatever scope, whatever pellet, we'd be onto something new. Whether we had to buy it ourselves or got help with it or whatever, or we had to sell a wife's kidney. If it's going to get us, if it's going to get me a point, right, that wife's on the operating table, right? You know what I mean? She could live on one kidney.
Good example of this, Matt, is my wind flag. So I've made and sold wind flags for the last like 5-6 years for other people now. And the last set I made, I thought I could maybe shave off a bit of weight of that. Full carbon fibre set, the next ones, to save about 60 grams on each flag. Which I know it sounds daft, but we're trying to chase every single little advantage we can get. Like, I think I put out more flags than anybody on the range. And a lot of people can say it's like overbearing or too much information. But my viewpoint is, it's there if I want it.
I haven't got the brain power. I haven't got the brain power to calculate all them flags, Tom. I look at your setup, right, and I just go like, who? Like it's just totally overwhelms me. I've got 4 flags out. I've got 3 flags in what I call a light wind indicator, which is a strip made out of a marathon mylar blanket, and it flutters when there's absolutely no wind. Yeah. And that's what I've got, right? But he's got bloody clock faces, flags, mylar strips,
I got four flags.
Some walk down the bottom shouting left and right for him.
Yeah.
I just can't cope
Well,
with it.
again, as you touched on there, Matt, right? That's down to what each individual can process.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm sitting down here and I'm looking at 25 meters. Okay, the easy button is like a flag every 5 meters. That's okay. Some people will have maybe 10 times that amount or 3 times that amount or whatever. It's like, oh, that's confusing. And it's the old adage, like, one's going this way and one's going that way. What do I do now? Or like, okay, they're coming right.
We've had them going up as well. We've had them going up, haven't we?
Okay,
And
haven't encountered that personally now. That's one of those ones where you like lift your bolt, you're like, stop.
I was shooting with Tom one day, and the light wind indicator was going vertically, right? And I just turned to Tom and I just went, what the do I do now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's just answer there.
Yeah.
But then you go to the sires and see how far you miss the target.
Yeah, jump onto a red name low and learn something. That's what I would do in that situation. I'd be like, okay, I'll go red name low and see what happens.
We shoot quarries and things. Go on, you tell me about Portishead.
No, well, all right, Portishead can be dangerous as hell. One time, right, it's in what is it, Old Quarry, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, Old Quarry. So it's beautiful place. It's really nice to shoot at. But the back wall is 40, 50 foot high. You'll hear the trees rustle at the top, and then it's like, crap, I got about 3 seconds here before every single flag is about to drop. You get no idea what the wind's doing because it drops the pressure and it just pushes them straight down. Like you can hit right near the bottom of the target.
Yeah. Yeah. You see, that's one of those things about knowing your ground and where you are. Like, and what you just said there, that's the sort of thing that gets in my head. Like, you're shooting and you're like, okay, when pressure drops, barometric pressure drops or lifts, or if it comes from the left or it comes from 11 o'clock or it comes from 5 o'clock, where does that do? And issues I've had in this last sort of couple of seasons is like having stable equipment where okay, it's not my equipment. I didn't misrange it and I went high, and I didn't underrange it, and I went the opposite direction. So you're sort of going, that's a stable kit here, and I know my pellet, I know my barrel, I know my gun. Different for you guys where you're the 25 meters, where we have to work out, is it 47 yards or is it 49 yards? So there's a difference between where you'll impact on the target and print there. So, and again, you guys are shooting at like paper, so you'll see your like clean hole. We could be like the 70th person to shoot that target, and it's peppered to hell with everything hit on it, right? So you'll sort of go, you need to have a very stable platform, and as in your gun on your knee, and you need to create a platform as in your body on that position to be able to track your pellet. And if you can't see where you're striking, you can't correct from that. So those kind of pressures in the environment of change is a massive advantage or disadvantage to a field target shooter. But it's different for a bench race shooter, but you can correct all that.
Do you know what the greatest nightmare of a bench rest shooter is?
When you're outside,
is hitting where you aim. So you're aiming off into the 8 ring. You're expected to bend in. You look at your flags; they're all blowing one way. You press fire, and it hits exactly where the blinking crosshairs is. And you can hear people on the range just make the most wonderful noises when this happens, of hopelessness and defeat. And it's like the curse of the bench rest shooter. Because to be honest, there's a very small amount of conditions where you are aiming at the bull as a bench rest shooter outside, right? Yeah. So you're virtually never aiming at the bull. Even when there's no wind, you're somewhere on the edge of the bull or in the 9 ring because there's something happening out there that you've learned. But that heart-sinking feeling of where it hits where you're pointing, nobody wants that.
It's even worse when you're holding off quite far as well, and it does it.
Yeah.
Or even sends it the wrong way even further, and you're stuffed. Because if we drop, say, like 5 points on a target, that can be a whole weekend.
That's your card gone, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, that's one shot.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
we would have that.
And I love
target
the
match.
tension. I love the
Yes,
tension. It's like
that's a thing. Yeah, that can be like a negative or a positive. You know, when you're when you're
do you
going around the
feel
firing
nerves,
line.
Dave? Do you feel nerves?
To be honest, no, I don't, and I
Me
wish
neither.
I did.
Nothing.
Like the last time I felt nerves, I came back to field target in 2018, and I shot the BFTA European Championships in Weston Park, and I came back in May 2018. The Euros, the BFTA Euros was in September. And that was like the first big competition I had done in 10 years from being away from field target. And I come back in, and the very first target I went into was range finding. And I was the first person to shoot out of a group of 3. And it was the morning session, so it was a clean target. I sat down to range find it, and I felt it, like I could feel it here. And I turned to the guy I was shooting with, and I was like, I'm nervous. And he was an English guy, do you know what I mean? And it wasn't particularly someone I was friendly with or knew, but I just felt that break in my head to tell him. And I fired the shot, and it hit smack in the middle. And that's the last time I felt nervous. And that's not a sort of bravado thing, like, I'm such an experienced campaigner, I know this, I know, because I would feed off the electricity of those nerves. And if I could have that feeling every time I would shoot, I would choose to have that. But it only happened one time, my first shot, and it's never happened since. So I recognize that nerves can be a negative on someone if they get the jitters and, you know, it panics them. But I would be the opposite. I would feed off that and use that as like, not like an adrenaline drug, but
yeah. My wife says I'm too dumb to have nerves, and she's probably right. But,
I agree.
Listen, maybe I'm with you, man. Maybe I'm with you.
But I literally don't have them. And also, I think nerves, when you see somebody who's nervous or struggling, you suck that energy in, don't you? You know, it gives you power. And I don't want to give anybody else power neither that I'm struggling. I think I always joke about, there's Q says to Bond in one of the movies, never let them see you bleed. No matter how bad the days, you've got to be stoic all the way through.
Yeah, that's like when we shoot a card afterwards, when people say, "Oh, how'd you do?" You'd be like, "Yeah, it's all right." We just never let off the thing. Never let off any
I always
info.
say I've dropped 5. If I've dropped 1 point or I've dropped 10 points, I always go, drop 5.
But think if someone says to us, "Oh, how'd you do?" and you go, "Oh, I only dropped 2," what they'll do is when the cards are out and been marked, because they get a half an hour grace period after they're marked, that you can protest if you think something's wrong on it. Everybody will go up to your card and be like, okay, his pellets are going that way on the sighters. He must have a favourable win that way. I'll take advantage of that. If you keep quiet about your score and don't go bragging or anything, nobody looks.
Yeah.
Nobody takes more advantage.
There's 2 sort of thoughts on that. Like, when I shot Centerfire years ago, I developed my own cartridge, which would be like a wildcat round. Meaning it's like it is a reloaded round, but the wildcat means like you can't go out and buy this cartridge and assemble the parts of it, the bullet, the cartridge, the primer, the powder. Wildcat means you have to physically shape how the cartridge is. So I did this like back in the day, and it worked masterfully from like day one. And guys in the like Irish rifle team were like, "Shh, don't tell anyone about this." And I was like, "No, I'm gonna tell everybody about it." And they were like, "What? What's wrong with you?" Do you know? And I was like, we shot. Obviously, you're shooting F class, and I'm assuming it's the same for you guys in bench rest or rifle as it would be in like centre fire. You're on a common firing line, so I'd be like, "Nah, they have to lay down beside me." And still beat what I have. So I like sharing information that I have, although I do get the point of like a technical advantage that you shouldn't share. I do get that, but again, it's down to personalities and how I like sharing information, but I wouldn't share information with people that would withhold stuff from me, if you know what I mean. But like among my sort of close friends and my circle within Field Target, I would be quite open about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and you know, it'd be like, look, guys, there's an advantage to be had here. We could try this, you know.
Tom and I are like that. We, like I say,
Yeah.
he's on his way to work on the morning. He rings me about 7:00, and we call each other knob. It's like a standard greeting.
We've had some batshit crazy ideas.
But we share.
But-
We have rundowns of the previous weekend, what we learned at that range, all sorts of stuff. Now I'm going to take control for a moment. Hang on a minute, right? We're coming up to we've gone past the hour. This is the first time. Can I just say it's been magical? It's magical, right? It's been lovely. But I did actually have some questions, right? So we're going to do them quick fire, right? We're going to do them quick fire, and just
Hold on, we're finally going back on script, are we?
Yeah, but it was a record, and I think it's lovely. I think you said to me, "Can you have the questions beforehand?" And I said, "I bet we don't stick to script," and we don't. And I think this is magic. So first of all, right, quick fire. What's your first airgun memory?
Hunting in a field with a friend that was a photographer for a mountain bike team I raced for. And I shot, this might sound like complete BS, right? I shot a running fox with an Air Arms S410 from the hip, like this, at about 40 yards away, and I hit him behind the ear. And he was like, "Why did you even bother wasting your time shooting it?" I says, "Dad is behind that rock around there," and he couldn't believe this. Like, now it was one of those shots, but that's my first airgun memory.
So the whole of your career, you've never bettered that shot, really, have you? It's a 1 in a million that. so you peaked early, didn't you? Right. Another quick fire one.
Yeah.
What's your scope, your rifle, and your pellet for competition?
Vector Optics Continental 6-48 by 56. Rifle XTI 50, tuned obviously. Pellets, I'm using JSB Diablo 8.4s, although I have been experimenting with H&Ns recently. So that's my sort of combo at the moment.
2 more questions. How often do you train? And how long?
What do you mean train now?
Well, I shoot every day. How often a week do you shoot with purpose to become a better shooter?
Okay, so this, like on average, 6 days a week, I would go out and practice what I would call, or train might be a different word, but I have had sort of variations in equipment where I haven't found a stable platform recently. So I wouldn't call that practice. Practice to me is going out with equipment that you know is right. You just go, this is it. And you're practicing, right? The rest of the time I would call that testing. Okay. So I would test 6 days a week when I'm chasing after something. But this last while, us guys here in the Northern Ireland Field Target Association are running the World Field Target Championships in August this year, and we've been sort of working on that for the last 2.5 years. For the last probably 6 months, it's been pretty intense. So there's weeks now my gun doesn't even know who I am anymore, But that's what you give up when you take the responsibility on,
And the last question. I understand that you have attended the Northern Monkey event in the UK, in England, at some point. My friend was telling me.
I know a few Northern Monkeys, yeah.
Yeah. If you ever get up there, look me up because I live right next to the Northern Monkey event. So I'll come and see you.
Yeah, will do, yeah, for sure. I definitely will.
And I'll wind you up face to face rather than just over the internet. Now,
I would love that.
Yeah. Before we go, a couple of things I need to say. Right at the beginning, before Dave led me down a path of pellet testing and whatever, I was going to say thank you to our sponsors of this podcast, Crackshot and Falcon. They've donated the cost of running this podcast for a year. Thank you very much. We do appreciate it. You'll have seen a couple of adverts.
Thank you, Crackshot.
We'll have seen a couple of adverts that I've done, and thanks to Kev Johnston for the voiceover on the adverts, because evidently I was too northern, and the one Tom did, he just sounded like an idiot. So we had to get
You
a real
asked me
person
to
in.
do it after I'd had a drink, so what do you expect?
Do not ask Tom to do voiceovers, right? He did me a cowboy voiceover, right? And then refused to do one in any other style. So I had to go elsewhere. And the other thing is, we've got to celebrate one thing, right? We were talking about just before we came on air, right? And Tom did something really special with his unlimited rifle last weekend. Tell us about that, Tom.
Well, obviously we know Unlimited's new over here, so everybody's a bit experimenting, not sure which way to go. The last weekend we had round 2 of the BR UK tour, is that right, Matt? Round 2? I think it's round 2. Yeah, round 2. So I've only been doing FAC air rifle for 3 months now. That's as long as I've had my FAC, ever. So it's all new to me, still learning it. I'm very fortunate. My wife, her parents own a farm, so I can practice quite a bit there, which is what a lot of people can't do for 50 metres, so I got a bit of advantage there. Doing a lot of practice, it was going well. Had the shoot, shot really well. I managed to shoot the highest individual scored card for 50 metre unlimited, and also the highest free card score, which is now giving me the British record.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, and you know, even I know how much of a struggle this FAC is, and you seem to be the first person who's coming to the point where they're going to crack that nut in the UK. When I get my FAC out, the only thing I don't shoot's a range officer, so allegedly.
I remember you doing your first shot with the one you got now. What was it? Plum Center X, and you were like, "Oh,
perfect bow.
I got this."
Like his fox shot.
Yeah.
Like his fox shot. I got the gun out. I went pop. I turned to Tom. I went, scope that target, or you won't believe me, right? And then it was just Don't get me wrong. The gi is good. My gi is good. I just don't have the time to do the pellet testing.
Speaking of gear, and also related to our lovely sponsor Falcon, Nick from Falcon got in contact with me just over a month ago. He's seen the HFT 500 I built, the stock that I built for my other half, which is all purple. She's obsessed with purple. So Nick said to me, I think you could do with a purple scope for that. I thought, well, it'd be a good idea. And he said, you got anything coming up soon? I said, well, no, Mrs. birthday's just been. We got our anniversary next month, which is actually today, May 25th. And he said, all right, he said, thank you. He said, leave it with me and I'll see what I can do. And here we have, to go on her rifle, a T50 with some alloy purple bits.
Yeah, he's the man, isn't he? He's the man.
Well done.
The funniest thing was, when I said to her, it's addressed to you on the box, she's like, well, I haven't ordered anything. So she opened it and was like, it's a scope. I don't understand.
Yeah.
What's fantastic, Tom, is
Nick done all the work and you took all the credit.
Yes.
Tom, now you can. Tom, now you can shout at Kirsty and go, how much was that? When did you buy that? Like every other package we get through the door. Yeah. So you know,
you need another handbag.
you've got to give it a bit back. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to say, as I always say to everybody's watching, get out there, live that airgun dream. You know, Dave, thank you for coming along. Yeah, you've been a great guest, and you've been an education. You've been an education, trust me. And
listen,
Tom,
appreciate it.
Tom, I'll see you next time. Okay, guys, take care.
Boys,
bye-bye.
From me to you guys before you go, right? I want to tell you from a different discipline shooter, not just as competitors and friends. You are credit each other, you share information, and that is what makes the level of the sport grow. So God bless you both. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks.